Welcome to High Sobriety. Our goal is to save lives and remove the stigma of addiction. Here's the host of High Sobriety, John Mabry.
Hi, welcome to Addiction Campuses High Sobriety Podcast. I'm your grateful recovering host, John Mabry, and I'm thrilled to have on the show Lindsay Jones. And Lindsay is a writer, motivator, co-founder of Life Warrior and Hug Your Chaos. It's a coaching and motivational blog you definitely want to check out. She's dedicated her life to helping others overcome self-imposed limitations and find their true success in life. And so no matter what kind of addiction you might be struggling with, it might be shopping, it might be binging on Netflix, it could be drugs and alcohol, pornography, anything along those lines. You definitely want to tune in here and listen to Lindsay and as she shares her experience, strength, and hope. She's also written the book Fractured, a Hug Your Chaos story of healing. It's healing from addiction and disease and illness through energy work. And so we'll be talking about the book here in a little bit, but welcome to the show, Lindsay. It's great to have you on High Sobriety.
Hey, John. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks again for having me. Definitely excited to talk to your people and your audience.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the topic of kind of balance and energy. I know when I first came into the recovery world, that just threw me off. I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" Like, I grew up in church, and it's about the Bible, and it was kind of cut and dry. But once you start talking about meditation and tapping into chakras and energy, I was just like, "What the heck is going on?" But I have to say, over time, just slowly allowing, having some openness and an open heart and an open mind to trying something new to help me stay sober. I've learned a little bit, and I'd love for you to talk with our audience about that here as we move forward. But before we get into that, take a few moments to share about your story and what got you into what you're doing today.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of the most important parts, I think, is when we just kind of qualify to one another so we can really, because that was one of the most profound things for me, I think, in getting over and moving into sobriety and recovery and getting over my addictions was finally connecting with people who would share their stories, and I would be like, wow, you actually understand everything that I have been feeling. And when I would hear people put into words my own struggles in life that I thought I was so alone on was so profound. So I'll absolutely just share a little insight into where I've come from because I think it's so important. So I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in 1979, so the early part of my childhood was in the 80s, and that was just a different time of living. Nowadays we hear all this talk about emotional wellness and, energetic frequencies and our energetic selves and our higher selves and all these different things you kind of hear going around through the spiritual expansion as opposed to, like you said in the beginning, religion and growing up around religion. And we just didn't talk about that kind of stuff. It wasn't something that was commonly acknowledged. Oh, you're very highly sensitive or empathic, as a lot of people may resonate with that word. And even just emotions in general. We really didn't do them in my house. It was, and at the time, to me, it just seemed normal. Growing up in New Jersey, having one half of my family being Italian, the other half being Cuban, there was a lot of yelling that went on and not a whole lot of communication.
Man, I can't imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's always yelling to be heard, and it was always kind of hard to tell, are they fighting or are they just talking to each other? And, we didn't do emotions. So I learned really young to keep those in because it was really, my house was one of those households where if you cried or threw a temper tantrum, that kind of brought on the wrath of, my dad. It was, I'll give you something to cry about. And so we really learned that you just didn't get to have those emotional outbursts. And as a defense mechanism, really, I learned to just keep it all inside. And I buried myself in other things when I was younger, books and stories and games of imagination. And in hindsight, coming to understand myself as an addict and an alcoholic, I realized that it all started very young for me, my need to escape. And, as the years went on, I gradually tried one thing after another until I found myself, in full rebellion in high school. I went from being, like a straight A student, doing well, playing sports, to now I'm going to go over here and smoke cigarettes and bring booze to school and start getting in trouble, getting, suspended from school, getting the detentions, and barely graduating. And it was all just fun and games for me. And I really am I'm one of those people who I don't do things half energy. I kind of as I'm sure a lot of your listeners can probably relate to that. I'm sure you yourself can relate to that. Most of us who find ourselves caught up in alcoholism or drug addiction or any kind of addiction, really, we're not usually the types who do things lightly. And so I went full throttle, and shortly after I graduated from high school, I found myself strung out and addicted to heroin. And again, in hindsight, I realized, like, at the age of 15, when I was like bringing booze to school with me, I just thought I was being, a rebel. And it's a really big problem with that. That's a really strong indication that, something's not firing right within me, and I'm not really operating by healthy standards. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, like I said, then by 18, 19, I was strung out, and I took it full throttle. I was, I was committing crimes. I was doing burglaries. I was robbing. I was stealing. I was doing whatever it took to stay high. And that went on for a few years, where I would check myself into treatment. Every time I thought I was about to get arrested, I would check myself into treatment and play that whole game. And at the age of 24, I found myself, it finally kind of set in, and I realized then that drugs were the problem, or so I thought. I still didn't have the full understanding that I was the problem. And so I said, okay, I'm going to be all right here if I just stay away from the substances and the drugs and the illegal stuff. And shortly after that, I found myself just in full-thrown alcoholism, where I would be drinking in the mornings, drinking all day, drinking all night, drinking at work, and I was bartending at that time, so I was surrounded by people who didn't think that was a problem. We were all just having fun and games and making really bad decisions and being very reckless, drinking and driving, and just those things that we think are okay to do when we're operating under that constant source of inebriation. And I still didn't realize at that time that everything that I was doing was a mask for the pain that I was in. And I think really important kind of aspect of my story is just before I turned 30, I found myself getting prescribed pain medication for a neck injury. And I think this is so important right now, because what I'm seeing going on a large scale with the opiate epidemic and people just being addicted at such a large scale like never before seen, and overdoses, that's exactly the thing that spiraled me back into that heavy, hardcore IV drug use, was thinking, having these prescribed pain pills and thinking I was managing them, and not really understanding that I was slipping and sliding down a very, very slippery slope. And before I knew it, I found myself back at the depths of, just anything I could get to put in a needle, cocaine, heroin, other pills that I could shoot up. I was just doing it. And again, I found myself with my life burned to the ground, where I was unemployed. I was robbing and I was stealing again to keep that habit going. And over the course of all these years, I had found myself just moving from place to place and doing the geographics. And I would have some successes, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm all right. Like, look what I'm doing. I'm traveling. I have a job. I have a relationship. And then I just found myself back at the depths of that despair again. And that was the lowest I ever was. And that was about 5 years ago now. And I was waking up in the mornings, and I was upset that I was waking up, because I really was that hopeless at that time that I just wanted to die. And that was kind of the thing that finally made me realize, because, I have I'm a very energetic person, and I've got really big goals and really big dreams of what I can do for the world and seeing the whole world. And when I look at the fact that I was sitting in this hole of like not wanting to wake up, but not really having the courage to just kill myself, that was really, really scary for me. And that was when I finally checked myself into my last detox and while I was there, something short, what many of us refer to as a spiritual experience happened, because in that moment of being there, I had the realization that I knew nothing about living. And I had the realization that if I was going to keep trying to live according to what I knew, I was going to end up dead or locked up for a really long time. And in that moment of realization, I just opened up to finally listening to other people and hearing other people. And then, of course, that's where I started getting reintroduced to some 12-step programs and different spiritual teachings and things like yoga and things like breath work and energy work. And it just spiraled upward from there because I was so open and I was so hungry for that change and hungry for my life. I was books were coming to me, people were coming to me, teachers were coming to me. And I firmly believe that when we really decide and we make a commitment to do something or learn something, the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, God, the universe, spirit, source, I don't care. I'm not attached to, because I believe it's all the same thing, the inherent intelligence that's kind of running the show for us. We will be provided the tools to get where we want to get to. And of course, it's not going to happen for us. And that's when I realized I had a lot of work to do. And I finally, for the first time in my life, became willing to do that. And, at the time I went full depth into the 12-step programs, and I immersed myself in those, and I, worked with sponsors and did my steps and was all about that. And in the last couple of years, I've moved away from 12-step programs. I'm still firmly believe in the power of them and firmly, support them in any aspect. And it's my life has become everything that I never, ever knew it could possibly be, because if I really look back, and I always laugh when, we get caught up as humans, we get caught up in the habit of saying, like, things aren't fair. And I very firmly realized that if things were fair, I would not have the life that I do, because if things were fair, by all means, especially watching the rate at which people are dying from addiction these days, I should be dead or I should be locked up if life was fair, because I'm definitely, when I look back on the decisions that I made and the amount of substances that I would pump into my body, I'm like, I don't know how I lived through that. I really, truly don't. And the only thing that comes back to me is that there's a purpose and there's a reason and there's something that I'm meant to do. And so ever since coming to that place and getting my hands on recovery and sobriety and the freedom that comes with being connected and balanced energetically and spiritually and really walking in our purpose and our path, I'm so grateful for that every single day of my life, my actions back up that gratitude. And so I make sure to do the things that are going to keep me grounded and connected and in healing, because I would never want to go back to the pain and the agony that I bring when I go into addiction and avoidance.
Mm-hmm. Man,
and so here I am.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Just to kind of recap before we go into talking about some of the balance and chakras and energy stuff. You're 15, you're taking alcohol into school with you. At age 18, 19, you're robbing people to get high. Yep. And you got to a place where you just wanted to die. And you're an amazing being with so much light and energy and knowledge and experience to share with the world, but you just wanted to die, but you didn't have the guts to kill yourself. And there's so many people that get to that, that hopeless state of mind and body. And when you're in that place, when I'm in that place, everything's going away from me. People are running away from me. Jobs are going away from me. Everything, the finances are going away from me because I'm closed off. I'm trying to do it on my own power. But you described being open. You finally got to a point where you went to your last detox and you opened up and you became willing. Just all you need is a little bit of willingness to try something new and listen to somebody else in maybe a 12-step meeting or a therapist or a religious advisor of your choice. But when that stuff starts to happen, things start to come to you again. And here you are, living it, working the deal. You're doing the deal on a daily basis, and things aren't going away from you. They're coming to you. And And I believe that that's a part of our internal energy. There's an experiment. Have you read E Squared by Pam Grout? Yeah. Have you read E Squared by Pam Grout? We've interviewed her here before. She talks about she has these energy essentially energy exercises, and one of them that I've done is you take 2 coat hangers. And you unfold them, you untwist them, and you make them into like an L-shaped. And the part that you're going to put in your hand, you're basically like holding guns, like holding big guns, and you put a straw over the end that you're holding in your hand. So you can't actually move the coat hanger. They're going to move on their own. And all you do is sit there and you hold them up to your side like you're going to shoot somebody, and you think of something negative. You think of something negative, something, a bad experience, something, angry. And you know what happens is the coat hangers start to turn inward. They literally turn inward to you. And then as they do that, you think of something positive. You think of your children, you think of, a vacation you went on, you think of something cool and exciting. And sure enough, they start to open up and they go outward. And it just shows, it physically shows that our energy does move things in our direct, location, and I believe, outward into the universe as a whole. So anyway, let's talk about what's the importance of balance in recovery.
Absolutely, and that's so key. I'm like shaking my head at what you just told me. I'm like, I gotta go get hangers and try it when we're done here. That's just absolutely amazing. And so the importance of balance is that, especially when we are caught up in any type of addiction, and as we talk more about energy and about fractured, you guys will all come to understand, like, I really believe addiction is a symptom of an energetic imbalance. And like you said, when we're in that state of just retraction and we're pulling everything in and we're shut down, that's not balance. And then, of course, to the flip side of that, if we're just constantly giving and doing for others, like, that's not balance either. And as humans, because this, realm that we live in, everything really truly is energetic. And we have this tendency to, always be in extremes. And we see a lot of that, even just if we look at the kind of collective world right now, everything's about these extremes, right? It's always love and hate, dark and light. You're either over here or you're over here. And we're forgetting that there's this whole area in the middle of peace and of balance. And in order for us to have balance, we have to realize that, let's just take darkness and light, for example. For light to exist, there has to be darkness as well, right? Otherwise, the light would have no context. It would just be the state of things as they are all the time if there was no darkness to give it that context of it being light. Yet, we run around in life and we don't want darkness. We just want it to be light all the time. We want there to be sunshine all the time. We want to be happy all the time. We want to feel good all the time. And that's just not possible. And somewhere along the way, we get this idea that we can do that. And of course, any of us who struggle with addiction are going to understand that whole addiction is about being addicted to that constant feeling of pleasure, constantly feeling the good and avoiding the pain. And that's not balance, because balance, there has to be a little bit of everything. And even in sobriety, if we're not balancing our self-care with our service and what we're doing for other people, that can very quickly become an unsustainable model of living as well. And so the only way to truly come to a place of happiness and joy, and when I say a place of happiness and joy, I don't mean like we're constantly just walking around with a smile plastered on our face, but the state of happiness that we can live in means that, okay, sadness might come up. I might feel angry. I might feel a feeling of frustration if I stub my toe. I might feel excited. We feel the full range of emotions, but because we're living in balance, we always can come back to that inner core state of happiness, which to me means that we're in a state of trust and we're in a state of love for ourselves and also a state of love for everyone else, because it really is just all a reflection.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, can you touch a little bit on chakras? So, in energy work, talk about energy and balance. Inevitably, somebody's going to come across chakras. What the heck is a chakra?
Absolutely, yeah. And it was funny because when I came across chakras, I was like, "Oh, this new age crap! Like, I don't even want this is whatever. I don't."
All right, same here. Same here. I'm like, this is for the hippie weirdos.
Exactly, because I was like always this very, rigid, and I'm like a punk rocker. I'm rebellion to the core, and all that peace, love, and energy stuff. Get out of here with that. But the more that I studied them and started actually working with them, I was like, oh my God, like this actually makes a ton of sense, and it started to put in perspective for me all of the things physically, mentally, and emotionally I had been dealing with. So a simple explanation of the chakras, if we think of ourselves, and I think more and more people are really coming to accept this idea that, yes, we have a physical body, but then we have an emotional body. Like there is a very real element to us that is our emotional body, our mental body, right? And then, of course, our spiritual body. And you could go more and more and more and start getting into, auric and etheric bodies for the people who are really into the energy work, but we're going to keep it mainstream for now. And I think a lot of people can kind of be like, yeah, okay, I agree with that. There's an emotional body. There's a spiritual body. Sure. So when you think about all of them being layered over each other and then needing to communicate, and you look at the chakras as these main centers of energy within the body, and the ones that I really focus on are the 7 main chakras that are in the chakra teachings. And actually, it's funny because if you start going back on a lot of the older religions and a lot of the, even like in the Bible and in the Jewish texts, many different religions, you can find reference to these energy centers, 7 energy centers in the body. And it was believed that these energy centers were the source for really understanding us as complex human and spiritual beings. And so in Sanskrit, chakra translates to disc or wheel. So the way that I've kind of started explaining them to people is if we take it back to the 90s and we think about like computer disks and floppy disks that used to be used to transfer information between computers, if you think of the chakra as your own energy disk and that it's holding information about you and your physical programming, your emotional programming, your mental programming, and all of that comes from a variety of your DNA, your ancestors, your family, and your own experiences, life. And it gets stored away in these chakras, and the energetic state of each chakra is what's determining how you're functioning in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a transfer of information, and when you're closed off, when I'm closed off, and I'm hiding, I'm hiding my addiction, I'm hiding my shame, my guilt, and my fear, and my anger, and my rage, and resentment. That data doesn't get out and get transferred in turn. But when you start to become open, you start working a program of recovery, you sober up, you come to maybe Addiction Campuses treatment facility, where we offer things along these lines. We offer yoga and meditation. We don't go real in depth into it, but we do offer, we are a mind, body, spirit approach kind of a facility. And so if somebody is interested in what Lindsay Jones is talking to us about now and is looking for an inpatient treatment center that's open to offering this, and if you don't want it, we don't force it on you. If you want a church service on Sunday, when I was at our treehouse facility in Dallas several years ago, if you wanted a church service on Sunday, they would bring in a pastor to come do that. And they offered Celebrate Recovery, a 12-step program specifically for kind of a Christian twist to it. And so we are open-minded and willing to meet you where you're at. So let me ask you this, Lindsay. If you had one piece of advice to give someone who's trapped in addiction right now, what would you give them?
I would say first and foremost, breathe, and then just move, take the step, take the action, because it's really all about that stuckness and that feeling hopeless. And when we're trapped in that, we think that nothing is going to work, but literally by just taking that one action towards the change, everything else will just open up and spiral outwards.
Absolutely. In recovery, we talk about just making the next right decision. And so you don't have to change everything all at once. Your life may be completely out of control. Or if you're listening, if you're a family member or loved one listening right now, and there's somebody in your support system or family or neighbor or church member who's really struggling right now, I'd love to point out that they're not a bad person. I mean, look at the amazing work that Lindsay's doing today. Yes, she was robbing people. She was stealing from people. She was lying. She was, trying to avoid jail time and trying to escape from her consequences. However, if you look underneath the surface, you had some underlining issues of not good enough, or fears and anxieties and worries, and you were just a person who was sick, who needed help. And when you finally became open and willing to try a new way of life, things started to open. But in my experience as well, it's just one step at a time. And so maybe that step today is to pick up the phone and call Addiction Campuses. Maybe today is the day you go on and you go order Fractured, A Hug Your Chaos Story of Healing by Lindsay Jones. Again, the book's called Fractured, A Hug Your Chaos Story of Healing from addiction, disease, and illness through energy work. So go to Amazon.com. Where else can people find the book, and where else can people connect with you online, Lindsay?
I'm all over online. So hugyourchaos.com is our main website. And on hugyourchaos.com, there's our blog. There's links to my books and some other things. And there's lots of content on the blog that kind of just even dig deeper into this and the experience of, addiction and as related to energy work. I'm on Facebook, but my full name is Lindsay Caracardi Jones. So if you go to my website, though, you'll find me. But basically Facebook, Instagram, yeah.
Excellent. And Lindsay's got some coaching programs and things if you wanted to have an individual approach. Maybe treatment's not the right time or the right thing for you right now. Maybe giving Lindsay a call and having somebody work with you one-on-one is an option. But if you do,
absolutely,
if you are looking for support on a larger level, or you need to take a bigger step than that, again, addictioncampuses.com. You can go there, talk to one of our treatment specialists by calling. Grab your pen. I'm gonna give you the phone number. I'll state it twice. It's 844-888-HELP. Again, addictioncampuses.com, or call one of our treatment specialists right now at 844-888-4357. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for being on High Sobriety. I think you did an amazing job just touching on the importance of balance and energy and chakras without that's easily digestible, or that would be easily digestible for somebody just coming into it and looking for a new solution to their problems today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. You have a great day. Love to have you on High Sobriety, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, John. You too. Keep it up.
All right. Over now.
Thank you for listening to High Sobriety. If you or a loved one are struggling with an addiction, we can help. Call our hotline at 844-888-HELP. That's 844-888-4357. Don't wait. Call today, 844-888-HELP. High Sobriety is an Addiction Campuses podcast.